This teen was questioned, doubted, and humiliated for no reason, but the people who called security, they had no clue who his mother was. Jaylen Rivera stepped into the airport with a mix of excitement and nerves fluttering inside him. Today marked his first solo flight, and every step he took echoed a quiet thrill in his heart. The terminal was busy with people hurrying to their destinations, announcements chiming overhead, and the scent of coffee mingling with the aroma of freshly baked pastries. Jaylen's hand gripped his boarding pass like a treasured secret, while his backpack swung gently at his side. He had rehearsed his mother's advice over and over: be polite, keep your eyes open, and call her if anything felt off. As he moved toward the seating area, his heart thumped a steady beat that matched the rhythm of his footsteps. The energy around him was palpable, yet he felt a little out of place amid the organized chaos. Every face he passed seemed to carry its own story, and for a moment, Jaylen wondered if his was just beginning. He settled into a seat near a row of large windows overlooking the runway. Sunlight streamed through, casting shifting patterns on the floor, and he marveled at the idea that soon he would be among those flying to far-off places. With a gentle tap on his phone, he scrolled through his messages, absorbing the everyday chatter of friends and family. Yet, a quiet part of him remained alert, keenly aware that life often held unexpected twists. A few minutes into his wait, he caught sight of a security officer scanning the area with a practiced gaze. Jaylen's mind flickered with a mix of curiosity and caution. What if something unexpected happened? He reassured himself, remembering the calm tone in his mother's voice during their last phone call. The idea of the unknown was both thrilling and a little intimidating. His eyes wandered to the airport directory, where screens flickered with information about arrivals and departures. In that moment, every detail felt magnified. The murmur of conversations, the rustle of suitcases, the faint echo of footsteps on polished floors. It was as if the entire terminal was part of a larger narrative, each person playing a role in the unfolding story of travel and connection. Jaylen adjusted the strap of his backpack and took a deep breath, absorbing every sensation around him. The scene was vibrant and real, a place where stories began and sometimes took surprising turns. Even as he tried to calm his racing thoughts, he couldn't shake the feeling that his day was about to take an unexpected detour. But stay with me as this story unfolds into a moment that will test our perceptions and reveal the true nature of understanding. Jaylen shifted in his seat, stretching his legs as he glanced at the time on his phone. His flight wasn't for another hour, so he figured he'd relax, maybe grab something to eat in a bit. That's when he noticed them, two airport employees dressed in crisp uniforms standing a few feet away. They weren't looking at the screens or checking their radios. They were looking at him, whispering. Jaylen kept his head down, pretending not to notice, but his stomach twisted. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He had his ticket, his ID, everything was in order. Maybe they were just patrolling. Maybe he was overthinking it. But then, one of them started walking toward him. "Excuse me, young man," the older of the two said. His voice carried a forced politeness, the kind that felt more like a test than a greeting. "Can we see your boarding pass and ID?" Jaylen blinked, caught off guard. Sure," he said, reaching into his pocket. He handed over his documents, his fingers tightening around the strap of his backpack. The employee studied the boarding pass, flipping it between his fingers, then glanced at Jaylen like he was searching for something, a reason to doubt him. "This ticket, are you sure it's yours?" The man's tone had changed, less polite, more skeptical. Jaylen frowned. "Yeah, I bought it a week ago." The second employee, a woman with sharp features, peered over the man's shoulder. "First class?" She said it like it didn't make sense, like the words didn't belong next to him. Jaylen nodded. "Yeah, my mom booked it." Silence. A shared glance between them. Jaylen could feel the weight of their doubt pressing down on him. His heart pounded, not from guilt. He hadn't done anything wrong, but from that feeling. The one he'd heard about from cousins, from his mom. The feeling of being watched like you don't belong. The woman exhaled sharply and turned to her coworker. "We should verify." The man gave a tight nod. "Wait right here." Jaylen swallowed hard, his fingers gripping his phone. His pulse drummed in his ears. Verify? What was there to verify? People walked past, barely paying attention, but to Jaylen, it felt like a spotlight had been turned on him. His face grew hot as he sat there, an uneasy stillness settling over him. And then, just as he was about to ask what was going on, a police officer walked up, but things were just getting started. Because what happened next? That's where everything took a turn. Jaylen's throat went dry as he watched the officer approach. His uniform was neatly pressed, radio clipped to his shoulder, hand resting lightly near his belt. The employees immediately stepped aside, like they had just handed off a problem for someone else to deal with. The officer, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, didn't speak right away. He just looked Jaylen up and down, taking him in. The hoodie, the backpack, the dark skin. Then, in a voice that was calm but carried authority, he said, "We got a report about a suspicious individual trying to board a flight without proper authorization." Jaylen's stomach flipped. "What? No, I have my ticket. They just checked it." The officer didn't look convinced. He held out a hand. "Let me see it." Jaylen forced himself to breathe as he handed over his boarding pass and ID again. The officer studied them for a long moment, his brow furrowing slightly. "You said you're flying first class?" Jaylen nodded slowly. "Yes." Another glance, another pause. The airport employees stood nearby, arms crossed, looking satisfied, like they had caught something before it slipped through the cracks. Jaylen clenched his fists. He wasn't stupid. He knew exactly what was happening. "Sir," he said, keeping his voice steady, "I've done nothing wrong. My ticket is real. My ID is real. So why am I being stopped?" The officer exhaled sharply, as if the question annoyed him. "Just a routine check. You understand, right? We have to make sure everything is in order." "Routine check, right." Jaylen glanced around, his eyes darting to other passengers, businessmen in expensive suits, families juggling luggage, a group of college kids laughing by a vending machine. Nobody else was being questioned. Nobody else was being verified. His heart pounded harder. If it's just routine, why am I the only one being checked? The officer's expression flickered, just for a second, like he wasn't expecting pushback. Then his tone cooled. "Look, son, just answer the questions. Who booked this ticket for you?" Jaylen inhaled sharply, frustration bubbling in his chest. "My mom." "Uh-huh. And where is she now?" Jaylen's fingers gripped his phone so tight his knuckles ached. This was ridiculous. He wasn't a criminal. He wasn't trying to sneak onto a flight. She's not here," he said through clenched teeth. "I'm meeting her in Dallas." The officer looked at the airport employees as if silently confirming their suspicions. Then he spoke into his radio. "Stand by." Jaylen's whole body tensed. Stand by for what? The officer turned back to him. "We're going to need you to come with us for further questioning." Jaylen felt a rush of heat to his face. "What? No, I haven't done anything wrong." His voice carried this time. Heads turned. A few people paused mid-step, watching. The woman from before pursed her lips. "Sir, we have procedures. If you have nothing to hide, this won't take long." Jaylen's pulse was a hammer against his ribs. This was not happening. He wasn't about to be pulled aside like some kind of suspect when he had done absolutely nothing wrong. His mother's voice rang in his head. "If anything happens, call me." His fingers moved before he could second-guess it. He pulled out his phone and dialed. The officer sighed. "Who are you calling?" Jaylen lifted the phone to his ear. His voice was ice cold. "My mom." But the people standing in front of him had no idea who they were about to meet. The phone rang once, twice. Then a voice, firm and clear, cut through the static in Jaylen's head. "Jaylen?" His mother, Dr. Monica Rivera. The moment he heard her, the tightness in his chest eased, just a little. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to speak evenly. "Mom, they stopped me. They said my ticket needs to be verified." Then her voice dropped into a tone Jaylen knew all too well, the one she used when something, or someone, had crossed a line. "Who stopped you?" Jaylen's grip on the phone tightened. "Airport staff. Then they brought a cop over. They're asking me all these questions like I don't belong here." A slow, measured inhale. "Where are you exactly?" He glanced around, spotting a gate sign. "Near gate 32. My flight's in less than an hour." More silence. Then, with a sharpness that cut through every ounce of doubt in his mind, she said, "Stay right there. I'm coming." Jaylen exhaled, gripping his phone like a lifeline. He had no idea how she was going to pull this off, but one thing was certain. This wasn't over. The officer crossed his arms, watching him. Who'd you call? Jaylen slid his phone back into his pocket, his pulse still racing. My mom. The airport employees exchanged glances, unimpressed. The woman scoffed under her breath. And what's she supposed to do? Jaylen's jaw clenched. More than you think. The officer let out a slow sigh, like this was all just a waste of his time. Look, son, I told you. This is just a routine check. It's not personal. Not personal. Jaylen wanted to laugh, or maybe scream. He looked around the terminal again. A businessman in an expensive suit walked past without a second glance from security. A woman with a stroller checked her boarding pass without anyone questioning her. A group of college students in sweatpants joked around near a coffee shop, not a single one of them being verified. Not personal. Jaylen met the officer's gaze, his expression unreadable. You sure about that? The officer's face flickered with something, annoyance maybe, but before he could answer, something changed. The radio clipped to his shoulder crackled to life. A voice, one with authority, spoke through the static. We have a situation at Gate 32. Requesting immediate supervisor presence. The employees stiffened. The officer's posture straightened. Jaylen frowned. That wasn't about him. That was about her. He turned his head just as the sound of heels clicking against the floor reached his ears. Sharp, purposeful, unstoppable. And then, like a storm rolling in, she arrived. But what happened next? That's what none of them saw coming. The air shifted before she even spoke. Dr. Monica Rivera didn't walk. She commanded the space around her. Dressed in a sharp navy blue blazer, tailored slacks, and heels that clicked like a metronome of authority, she cut through the terminal like a blade through silk. Heads turned, conversations stalled. Even the officer, who had held himself with quiet authority, straightened instinctively, as if sensing a higher rank had just entered the room. Jaylen had never been so relieved to see his mother in his life. She didn't waste time. Who, she said, voice low but dangerously sharp, put their hands on my son's ticket? The employees stiffened. The woman, the one who had smirked at Jaylen just minutes ago, opened her mouth, then thought better of it. The officer recovered first. Ma'am, we were conducting a routine verification. Monica's eyes snapped to him. You called the police on a 17-year-old boy for what? The officer hesitated as if he finally realized he'd walked straight into a fire he couldn't control. He seemed out of place in first class, the woman from earlier blurted, as if that excuse would soften the blow. Silence. Then Monica let out a slow, disbelieving laugh, cold and sharp. Out of place? She echoed. Her gaze moved over the employees, then settled on the officer like a hammer about to drop. Jaylen had seen his mom in power mode before, in boardrooms, in negotiations, on the phone with CEOs who thought they were running things. But here, in front of these people who had humiliated her son, she wasn't just in power mode, she was in destroy mode. You didn't question anyone else sitting in first class, did you? She said, stepping forward. No, you saw a black teenage boy sitting alone, assumed he didn't belong, and escalated the situation to law enforcement. Her voice cut through the air, her fury controlled but undeniable. The woman employee flushed. That's not what happened. Monica arched a brow. No? Then explain it to me. Right here, in front of everyone. A few passengers had stopped to watch by now. A businessman in a suit looked away awkwardly. A flight attendant lingered near the gate, eyes flicking between Monica and the airport staff. Nobody spoke. Monica inhaled sharply. Then the kill shot. Do you even know who I am? The officer shifted. Ma'am, this doesn't have to... She cut him off with a slight tilt of her head. I didn't ask you to speak. Jaylen bit back a smirk. His mom didn't yell when she was angry. She didn't have to. She turned back to the airport employees. I'm Dr. Monica Rivera, owner of this airport. The woman visibly paled. The officer blinked. Jaylen swore he heard someone gasp. The silence that followed was thick enough to drown in. Monica let that fact sink in for a second before she continued. I have spent my entire career building businesses, creating jobs, and ensuring that everyone, regardless of what they look like, has the right to exist in spaces where they belong. My son belongs here. The woman started shaking her head. I wasn't trying to. You did, Monica said flatly. And I will be filing a formal complaint with airport administration and the TSA regarding your conduct. The officer cleared his throat, clearly scrambling to regain control. Dr. Rivera, we were just... Monica's gaze snapped to him. You were just what? Protecting passengers from a teenager sitting quietly with his ticket and ID? He had no answer. Here's what's going to happen, Monica said, taking out her phone. You're going to apologize to my son, and then you're going to explain to your supervisors why you thought racial profiling was a good use of airport security resources today. The woman opened her mouth, then closed it. The man next to her swallowed hard. Jaylen, still sitting there, heart pounding, saw the shift in their faces. They knew. They screwed up. The officer exhaled, then turned to Jaylen. I'm sorry, he said, voice tight, for the misunderstanding. The woman forced out the same words, though her face burned with humiliation. Jaylen didn't say anything. He just let it hang in the air. Monica didn't look satisfied, but she nodded once. Then she turned to her son. Are you okay? Jaylen finally let out the breath he'd been holding. Yeah, he said, standing up. I am now. But this wasn't just about him anymore. It never was. The weight in Jaylen's chest didn't fully lift until he and his mother walked away from the scene. The people watching slowly turned back to their own business, but something had shifted. Some looked uncomfortable, others thoughtful. A few still avoided eye contact altogether. The officer and airport employees remained behind, murmuring among themselves, probably rethinking every choice they had made that day. Jaylen tightened the strap on his backpack. Do you think they'll actually do anything about it? Monica exhaled sharply, leading him toward the first-class boarding area. They don't have a choice. I'll be making sure of that. He nodded, but the truth sat heavy in his chest. This wasn't new. It wasn't the first time something like this had happened to someone who looked like him, and it wouldn't be the last. They reached the gate. Monica placed a hand on his shoulder, turning him toward her. Listen to me. Jaylen looked up. I don't care where you are or who tries to make you feel small, she said, voice steady. You belong in every space you walk into. Never let anyone make you believe otherwise. Jaylen swallowed, his throat tight. I won't. She studied him for a second, then pulled him in for a quick, firm hug. He let himself sink into it, just for a second. Then she pulled back, smoothed his hoodie down like she always did, and smiled. Now go catch your flight. Jaylen grinned. Yes, ma'am. As he walked toward the jet bridge, he glanced over his shoulder one last time. The officer and the employees were still there, standing stiffly as a man in a suit, probably their supervisor, laid into them. He looked back at his mom. She was already on her phone, walking with the same purpose she had arrived with. Jaylen smirked to himself. They messed with the wrong mother today. But this isn't just one story. This happens every day, to people who don't have a Dr. Monica Rivera to come running. So, ask yourself, if you saw this happening, would you speak up? Would you stand by and let it happen? Or would you be the one to say, this isn't right before it goes too far? Think about that. Because one day, someone might need you to.